Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this hearing to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the home and the traditional lands of the Ojibwe, the Cree, Dakota people, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Ron Merritt. I'll be your chairperson this morning. Introducing the panel member presently, we have via Zoom is Diane Knight, and seated before us is Mr. Mike Colatrelio, and representing or our recording secretary is Sally Cofield, and representing the city of Winnipeg via the assessment department is Mr. Justin Michaluk. We'll be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll according to the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters of which revision is requested has been described in each application, and we will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anybody speaking in these matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessment properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it, along with the city administration. We make our decisions based on the evidence provided at this hearing and issue a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision in respect to application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if it pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to application for exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. In respect to the hearing this morning, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have. Then it'll be the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each party will have the opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket this morning. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decision. You will receive the board order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. This morning we'll be hearing items 4 to 6. So I asked Ms. Cofield to affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony. Ms. Cofield.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Justin Michaluk.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
Gary Primer.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
Please state your full name.
Barricades.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning to all. Mr. Michaluk, you might not know this, but there was a withdrawal of 131 Aberdeen Avenue. So are you aware of that?
Yeah, I was aware there's just 3 properties today, 600 McGee, 722 Furby, and 889 Grosvenor.
All right. So you're aware of that. So we'll get right to it. So we'll deal with the first property that we have is 600 McGee Street. So whenever you're ready, Mr. Michaluk, you can take us through this property.
Okay. So we have file number 23.
I'm sorry, interrupt for 1 second here. You are also seeking the non-co-op in this regard.
Yeah, for this property. We don't have any history of mailers.
Okay. So the city's seeking the not co-op issue?
Yes.
Correct. So do you want to speak in that regard?
Yeah, they just, we've got one mailer was sent to us back in 2017 saying that the property was undergoing renovations and was vacant. And then you could see here on page 2 that there's nothing that's been received by the department since. And then we have signatures of the letters that were sent out. Down on page 9 and 10 and 11 of the registered mail.
All right. So that's the city's position?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Cates, Mr. Reimer, your defense in regards to the non-co-op?
Thanks,
Either
Mr.
one
Chairman.
of you? Or maybe
Thanks,
both?
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, my role here will be limited to just the issue of the non-cooperation, and I have a couple of questions of Mr. Mikulik, and then a rebuttal brief in response to the information that's been submitted. So, Mr. Mikulik, could we turn initially to your page 9, please?
Yeah.
So this is, you referred to the signature page. This is the signature page that relates to a tracking number that ends in 45281CA, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and this document on page 9 and page 10 doesn't show the address to which the request was sent, correct?
No.
And on page 11, you've got a signature, and this relates to document or a Canada Post reference 763.ca, which is the first item, the first row, and the delivery date is shown as June 12th, 2023, correct?
Yeah.
And again, there's no indication of the address to which that whatever this was in June of 2023 was sent.
I don't see it. I do know the signatory name on it matches up with the person who's on our tip payment program for that property.
Certainly. So he signed for it, it appears in June of 2023, correct?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, those are my questions, and I do have a brief presentation in rebuttal. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Cates, do you have anything to add in that respect? No?
I don't,
don't think-
thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
so
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask Ms. Cofield to submit the rebuttal that we've prepared, and it would apply to, the same rebuttal applies, I'm asking for it to be applied to each of the 3 properties this morning.
All right, that's fine. I think Carrie, we'll just see if the assessor has any questions, and then we'll get back to your rebuttal after we have a discussion amongst ourselves, okay? So, Mr. Mikulik, questions in regards to what you just heard?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's anything to say.
All right. Ms. Knight, any questions in regards
Yes.
to what you just heard?
So just to be 100% positive, G. Sharma has signed this paper on the 12th of June in 2023. Is that correct?
Are you asking me?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
And G. Sharma is the person who's supposed to sign on behalf of 100554948 Manitoba Limited?
They're in our system as the tip payment name, so
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Colatrillio, any questions in regards to what you've just heard?
Yes, Mr. Assessor, Mr. Mikulik, has the information been received prior to 2023? And I believe you referred to something on your page 2, if I'm not mistaken.
yes.
So last time something was received was June 13th, 2018.
That's correct.
There was nothing received in 2018, 19, or 20, the years that were information was required?
No. We did not receive anything.
And is it normal that the information that is sent by Canada Post doesn't have the address shown on the return cards?
I don't know enough about the admin process behind that.
But this is the information provided for that specific location, correct? The information you provide on page 9, 10, and 11.
Right. Yeah, it's for this, it pertains to this property. Like whoever the owner is, that's who we had sent it to.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Did
Go ahead.
G Sharma sign in 2018 and whatever year that other one was?
No, because there was a transaction of the property July 15th, 2021.
Okay. Okay.
And you could see that in the subject sale history.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's post-reference, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right.
But that's, again, post reference or not, that's why they didn't sign for it back in those years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Reimer, I think we'll deal with your rebuttal and then we will have a discussion amongst the panel members. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on page 2 of the rebuttal, the issue is actually very
Sorry,
simple.
do we have that rebuttal? Sorry,
Yes, you do.
we do?
Yeah.
Was it here this morning or did it just come in now?
It just would have come in now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Just-
Okay,
Mr.
I'll
Reimer,
just go get it. Just a minute.
Just give us a minute, okay?
Sorry.
Certainly.
Okay, I see it now. Yes, great. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Reimer.
Mr. Qualtriglio?
Yeah, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, the issue in all 3 cases this morning is not quite exactly the same, but very, very similar. We're suggesting that the assessor hasn't discharged his onus of proving that the request made its way to the owner. And as per, I've attached a copy of a recent municipal board order A18275, which involved Altus Group. And that order makes it clear, following the principles that were set forth in the Litchfield court case, that the assessor has the onus to prove that the questionnaires were made their way to the owner, and in the absence of that, it's a precondition to the application of the penalties, and in the absence of that, the penalties cannot be imposed. I won't go through the whole order, but I do note on pages 12 and 13 of this rebuttal, at the bottom of page 12, the board lists a number of principles coming out of Litchfield, and at the bottom of page 12, they state, prior to ordering the deferral penalty under section 62.2, which is the municipal board equivalent of 53 in this case, the board must be satisfied a request for information was made and it found its way to the owner. The assessor has the onus to establish these facts. And on the following page, in the second paragraph, they state that in the board's opinion, mailing the 11 and 12 first and second requests to the address for service does not prove they were duly received by the owner, nor does tracking the information showing the 2012 second request arrived at the address for service. Delivery was attempted and it was available for pickup at the post office. And in that case, it actually had been returned to sender. Now, the board also, and this case in particular, for the reason I'll get to very, very shortly, it talks about, in this case, there was a delivery by that was accepted by the tenant of the property, who was not authorized to be, he wasn't essentially authorized as an agent on behalf of the owner. And in the third last paragraph on page 13, the board talks about that there's no evidence that the owner held out Mr. Zhao, who was the representative for the tenant, as its agent or was authorized to accept delivery on the owner's behalf. And the board in this case did deny the penalties. So fundamentally, Mr. Chairman, we've got a couple of concerns. First and foremost, there's no evidence in the assessor's materials, and I understand Mr. Mikulik, I believe, is coming to this sort of late in the game, but the department hasn't provided with him or Mr. Valderrama the address to which the request was sent, and that would certainly be a precondition, I'd suggest, based on Litcherson and this municipal board order, a precondition to the request. On the department's page 9, they actually have, if you turn to the assessor's brief on page 9, there's somebody that signed for it with a signatory named FD agent. So not only do we not know where it was sent, but I also have no idea, obviously, who FD agent is at that time. The 2023 signature on the assessor's page 11 by G. Sharma, that's all well and good, but if you recall, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mikulic's evidence was that the information was the stated request letter sent was April 15th of 2021. So this 2023 signature, I'd suggest, really has nothing to do with the request for 2020 information, which I believe forms the basis of the department's request. So in the absence of evidence as to where these requests were sent, which is not present in the brief, and for the reasons set out in the municipal board order that I have attached, I'm requesting that the assessor's request for the penalties be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bickluck, questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Ms. Knight?
So the first two pages on page 9 and 10, they're dated 2021. And those ones are returned. It's the 2023 that went to G. Sharma. Is that correct?
I mean, as far as I know, Ms. Knight, it's the 2023 request, which again, I'm positive it won't relate to the 2020 information.
Yeah.
But that's in June of 23, that's the one that the assessor submitted, again, without any reference to where the address to which it was sent, either in 23 or 2020.
Okay, thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Colatrelio?
I don't have any further questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, I thank you. So, Mr. Reimer, you were saying that your argument is applicable to this property and for the Furby property and Grosvenor Avenue?
It's very similar facts in the next two. I can certainly address those, but
Yeah.
very similar submission.
If
Yeah.
I can interject, the one on Grosvenor, I wasn't gonna seek non-compliance on.
Okay.
You are, Mr. McCluck, you were withdrawing the request?
For 889 Grosvenor.
Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Reimer, your argument is for McGee and Furby?
Correct.
Same owners, or with just it's just the principle of the non compliance.
Precisely. The similarities with Furby is that, again, the department didn't provide Mr. Mikulic with any evidence to the address to which they were sent, and there's also some inconsistent reference numbers in the Canada Post mailer. So again, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to address that individually if you want after the determination is made on this one, but that will be the submission, and the rebuttal would apply to that as well.
Yeah. So really,
Same owners? Sorry,
No, it's not the same owners.
not the same owners. Thank you. Sorry.
No.
but it's the same. It's the same principle.
Same principle.
Yes,
Mr.
indeed.
Reimer.
Yes, indeed.
So, all right. Ms. Cofield, we're going to take a little recess and discuss this. I guess the applicants will probably have to go down the hall.
Yep.
So-
Mr. Assessor, I'm putting you in the waiting room.
All right, we'll call the hearing back to order. And we're dealing with the non-co-op issue in regards to 600 McGee Street. The panel has unanimously decided that the non-co-op issue will be denied to the city. And Mr. Reimer, you had argued in regards to Furby that your presentation be applicable to 722 Furby Street.
Yeah, yes.
And your same arguments are going for this property. So I think that concludes your part. So thank you for your attendance, and you are free to go.
Thank you
And
very
have a
much.
good day.
Thank
I
you.
thank you. Okay. So we'll go back to 600 McGee Street. With the non-co-op issue denied, Mr. Mikulak, you can take us through this property whenever you're ready.
Do you want me to start with reading in the file number and roll number, or do we want to?
Do your presentation, sir.
Okay, so file number 23-238, roll number 13041368000. 600 McGee Street, roll year 2024, assessed value 705,000. So we got a 3-story apartment here, built 1909, 11 suites. You could see on page 2, we've gotten no income information back. The subject sales history. So we already talked about the post-reference sale, but it did sell in May 8th of 2015 for 650,000. As you could see there. The photo of the subject on page 3. So it's located on McGee Street, I believe just north of Sargent Avenue. So like kind of one building in off of Sargent on McGee. And our income value summary here that we have, you can see the suite breakdown, 5 bachelor, 5 1-bedroom, 1 2-bedroom, average monthly rent, we have $680.76. The model workup here, you can see works out to effective gross income of $86,984. with a 54.61 expense ratio to give us a net operating income of 39,482, capitalization rate being 5.6%, and the value per suite coming in at 64,090. For rent comparables, just to give you an idea where it stands within other properties in the area, you could see here, there's a little map showing where some of the rent comparables are. I don't know if you guys have color there or not, but the blue is where McGee is. And then you could see the other rental comps are color coded. I'm not sure if you could see, but similar region. And the rents, I mean, McGee's at 680.76. And we got 693 for Langside, 701 Wellington, 682, 530 Yonge Street, 746, 1124 Notre Dame's at 726. So right in line with the rents and the income. Capitalization rates over on page 6. So we're dealing with multifamily. So we fall in line for cap rates on the 20th to 80th percentile, 4.8 to 5.6%. Now, obviously, there can be some that fall outside each of those ranges, but that's the bulk of the distribution of cap rates. And you could see how that compares to some of the other industry real estate corporations with Colliers, CBRE, Cushman, and Wakefield. The city, though, would have a wider net of data to produce the cap rates, just solely being by the income and expenses are all submitted to us. Whereas sometimes the sales for, say, these other corporations that come up with their productions, they wouldn't have access to every single property's income and expense mailer on a yearly basis. So they're solely basing that just on the sales. We get all the mailers, so our cap rates are gonna stretch a little bit of a wider distribution. Capitalization rate evidence. So it says here the following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. So the purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. When we look at this group of sales, now some may happen to fall in place close to proximity of where the subject is. But what this is more giving us a picture of is that the sales here that you see support the cap rates, at least, that our models producing. So we can be at least confident that the model's not way out to lunch per se on cap rates. And outside of that, because there was no income or expense information provided to us, we can't really do a stabilization. So you guys have that's decided on a non-compliance. So that would be all for my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. McCulloch. Just
You're breaking up.
Reference. will not give that
Mr. Chair, you're breaking up.
Can I add one more thing?
I'm going to shut down my video. Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, and I touched on back when we were talking about non-compliance. There was that mailer that was submitted. The property said it was vacant and undergoing renovations in 2017, and there is a permit for that I know wasn't provided in here, but they did do renovations to the property that I don't believe our department has captured, and I think you'll probably see that in the presentation from the applicant.
Thank you. Like I said, I was breaking up, but I'll just say that the sale that you had mentioned is post-reference, so we will not give any consideration in that respect.
Well, one of the sales was, but the 2015 sale isn't post-reference, and it sold for $650,000.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Just so you're aware.
Okay. I thank you. Ms. Cates, questions of the assessor?
Yes, thank you. So when we're looking at the property information you've provided on your first page, would you agree that the property is quite old, having been built over 100 years ago?
The structure itself is old. I am not sure about, again, what's been done since then, though.
Okay. And would you
extend
agree?
the economic life of the building?
Yes, but would you agree that economic life is largely attributable to the bones of the property, structural elements like foundation, etc.?
I guess it depends what's been done.
Okay. Would you agree that the construction material of wood frame would not be considered as high quality or durable as other materials, especially factoring in its age?
Well, if it's 123 years old and wood frame construction, I would say it's done pretty well then. So, I mean, I don't know how you could make a case that wood's not a good material to build with.
So in your opinion, something like masonry wouldn't be superior to wood frame?
Depends.
Okay. Would you agree that the subject property has a low parking count, given that it's below a 1-to-1 ratio?
Yes.
And would you agree that the property is in a challenging location, socioeconomically speaking?
Yep.
So would you agree that these factors would be value negatives that would increase the risk?
No.
You don't agree that they're value negatives, or you don't believe they increase the risk?
I don't believe they would influence the overall cap rate, judging by some of the sales that have been presented.
Okay. So if we go to your cap rate table on page 6, you stated about the 20th to 80th percentile, but are you aware of what the entire range would be?
I think it's mid 3s to maybe 7. I don't know how high exactly, but that's gonna be my.
Okay, and would you agree that if the property was a riskier investment, that something beyond the 80th percentile would make sense as a cap rate?
It could, but a risky investment is again debatable. It's in the eye of the beholder.
So you don't believe the location is a big determinant of risk?
And not when it's supported by, I look at a sale on 677 Maryland at a 5.5 cap, built in 1913. I mean, it's, I don't know how much those things that you talk about really reflect themselves overall in the cap rate.
Okay, so speaking of those cap rate sales, then on page 7, 555 Corden is calculated at a 5.74, whereas the subject's a 5.6, correct?
That's correct.
And would you agree that Corden is superior to the subject property?
I would agree it's superior, however, the value per suite is higher that it's sold for. So you're looking at a 98,000 per suite on 555 Corden, and we have this at a 64,000 per suite. So when you reconcile the direct comparison approach, I would say that we are pretty good, I think, from an overall value perspective, even if the cap rates might differ a bit.
Okay. You also mentioned about not having the data to do a stabilization, but based on the past cycle, would you have done a stabilization even if you had the data?
What? Well,
For the
I mean, I
subject
would
property?
definitely be looking into the income and expenses to make sure that our NOI would at least be justified.
Okay, and were you aware there was an arson at the property in 2016, likely contributing to a lot of the renovations you're speaking of?
No, I wasn't aware.
Okay, thank you. That will conclude my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Ms. Knight, questions of the assessor?
I think mine were answered.
All right. Mr. Colatrigio?
Mr. Michalak, just want to circle back to just understand the timeline a little bit better. In 2016, you said there was a sale for 650,000?
May 8th, 2015.
Okay. Was that sale prior to any permits that might have been taken out on this property?
Yes.
So subsequently, there are permits that have been taken out for possibly fire damage, I'm guessing?
There was a fire damage one, but in 2017, the owner had taken out an interior alteration permit that I know wasn't produced in this report, but it was, I had looked into it in my preparation for this hearing. And
do you know what the value of that permit was, sir?
It said it was 600,000 on the permit. And I mean, the permit read new laundry room, new millwork, cosmetic work to existing building. So
and yet it doesn't appear that any effective age was changed on the building?
No, because the permit, when I looked into it yesterday, was still unassigned. So it's something that definitely needs to be taken care of. And sometimes we don't get to it until there's a hearing like this that brings light to what's happened to this property. So going forward, it's definitely going to have to be something that's considered, especially considering the most recent sale.
So that permit was 2017, you said, sir?
Yeah.
Mr. Michalak?
Yes.
That was 2017? Thank you. And as far as the other cap rate, in the cap rate study that you show, you have shown City of Winnipeg's calculation with the 20th and 80th percentiles. Also within that, you've shown Collier's, CBRE, and Cushman Wakefield, correct?
Right.
And which multifamily category would you have put this particular property in, sir?
I would say probably, I guess, like, I don't know, low rise, I guess.
Low rise A or just low rise? Or B?
B, I'm
They're all
assuming.
they seem to be all the same, so.
Yeah, like, that's why we, like, so I wasn't here for prior cycles, but we used to have a breakdown for different, cap rates based on the exact, like, high rise, low rise AB. I think we kind of got away from that, and just to encompass kind of one big umbrella of property ranges. Because there were things that were kind of like, oh, if the property had like 1 year up or down in effective year built, that got put in a different category that maybe it shouldn't have been, you know?
Yep.
We start looking at these hard date ranges and years. I mean, low rise B, I guess, would be where I would put this in. If you.
All right. Those are my questions.
I thank you. Mr. Mikulik, did you have a chance to do an inspection at all?
No,
No. So you didn't do a drive past or anything like that? No?
I did not.
Okay. So the fact that the fire escape is wooden, and the age is 1909 and 1910, and you feel as if the 5.6 cap rate is applicable?
I do.
All right. I thank you. Ms. Cates, the floor is yours, and I can sort of sum up. Your NOIs are exactly the same, so it's just a matter of cap rate. So the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So if you turn to page 2 of my submission, you'll see an exterior photo of the subject property, as well as my requested assessment of $632,000. On page 4, we have the property description. So the subject property is located on McGee Street, near its intersection with Sargent Avenue, in the Daniel McIntyre area of Winnipeg in the West End. So the property is a 3-story wood frame structure built in 1909. And the site size is on the smaller end at around 3,800 square feet. There are 11 units, which include 5 bachelors and 6 one-bedrooms. And there's a limited amount of parking at the back of the property. When I visited the property, I counted approximately between 6 to 8 stalls. It would just really depend on the placement and where the garbage bins are and such. So you'll see below that there's an aerial photograph of the parcel. And then on page 5, we have a Google map view just to show the placement within the neighborhood. So on page 8, we have the overview of our income approach. So we're not in dispute with the assessor's NOI. We are disputing the cap rate of 5.6%, and we're applying a cap rate of 6.25% based on our cap rate study. So as an overview, before I briefly touch on the cap rate study, what we've done is we've started with the our base cap rate for the age category, which for this structural age would fall between 6.1 to 6.6%. And then based on other factors that we've looked at, we would adjust upward or not within that range. So in this case, we've looked at several factors such as construction type, suite count, parking, but realistically, my adjustment is going to be coming from the location. So a small adjustment upward from 6.1 to 6.25, I feel makes sense for this property. So if you turn to page 9, we have the overview of or we have our valuation sheet. So unfortunately, the current owner was not provided with financials from the prior owner, so we weren't able to do a stabilization. But what we've done is we've looked at the parameters the city has used in the NOI to see if they make sense with market data. So when we look at the rents, though they are on the lower end, this is what the market is in this area for apartments, based on our research of the area as well as discussions with the current owner. In terms of the vacancy rate at 3.2%, while that would be on the low end to capture both vacancy and collection loss, to narrow the issues, we're also going to be using the 3.2, and we'll just be capturing any additional risk we feel in the cap rate. When looking at the expenses at around 54-55%, this makes sense for an older property that has transacted a few times, hasn't quite had the time to build the efficiencies within the management. We see kind of the most efficiently managed properties can get an expense ratio maybe at 48 to 52%. So we feel this would make sense for this type of property. So if I can now just briefly turn to our cap rate study, and I'll just highlight a few sections from there because I know everyone's heard it before. So if you turn to page 2 of the cap rate study, we start by discussing the assessor cap rate ranges. So they show something from 3.85 to 7.4. And while we acknowledge that most would fall within that 4.8 to 5.6 range, if you are dealing with a riskier property, it would make sense to go closer to that top end and leave that 80th percentile. Toward the middle of the page, we have a summary of the broker cap rates. So essentially, when we look at these broker cap rates, we know that they may even be on the low end because, as Mr. Mikulik mentioned in his presentation, the city has all the cap rates, whereas the brokers are more so probably dealing with investment grade style. So these might actually be a bit low, but when we look at a cap rate like 5.5, 5.6, that would be in the mid range of what they're presenting. So more so for an average run-of-the-mill apartment, which in this case, we're not dealing with. Now, if you go to page 4, we have the factors that we go through. So like I mentioned earlier, we'll look at different factors such as age, condition, parking, etc. But in terms of the factors at play for adjustments for this property and for Furby, it's really just been location as well as condition for Furby. Now, if you turn to page 6, we have our cap rate sales. And when I'm looking at the best cap rate comparables for this property as well as Furby, 512 Balmoral, I would say would be the best comparable. And then also 277 Lakeside. Now, while these can't be considered directly comparable in terms of all characteristics, I believe that they're capturing the locational element of it, given that they're in close proximity to the subject. And that would conclude my cap rate presentation. And then page 8 would just start the appendix, which would have all of our supporting documentation as well as our cap rate calculations. So I'll just go back to my main brief just to tie this all together. So with our with the NOI of 39,482 and a 6.25% cap rate, we get a rounded value of 632,000. Now, if you go to page 11, that would be the start of my appendix. I was able to visit the property and get a walkthrough with the current owner. And what you'll see, and I'll just kind of walk through the photos while you're scrolling through, you'll see that the units, while basic in finishes, the units are decent. So I've not made a condition adjustment here. I would say the overall condition of the property, when you're looking at kind of the common elements and the exterior elements, would probably be average or, below average in some parts. Like you'll see that, the units have had a bit of work done, but as you scroll through the photos, you'll see that some of the common areas a bit more worn down, such as staircases, kind of common hallways. And then you'll also notice some of the exterior photos at the back of the property, like the fire escape, where there's some wear and tear of those wooden elements. And then on page 33, I have the city valuation, building details, And then page 34, I just put in an article that pertains to this property specifically relating to the fire. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Mr. McCulloch, questions of the applicant?
So do we want to touch on questions pertaining to the property, or do we want to questions on the cap rate study first?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay. So just regarding the cap rate study, over on page 6, when you use the sales, so you said 512 Balmoral and 277 Langside are the best comparable for cap rate?
Yeah, in my opinion, for this property in Furby, like none of these properties are going to be directly comparable in terms of, you know, suite count, age, whatnot. But the cap rate for 512 Balmoral and 277 Langside, since they're in close proximity, I feel they're the best representative to capture locational issues with the risk toward the cap rate.
Okay, but yet 677 Maryland that was built in 1913 and was renovated similar to this property, wouldn't like you wouldn't think that that's legitimate?
You're saying renovated to this property based on your visits to them?
Based on the permit and your pictures that you've shown, it's not a 1910 finishing inside, is it? It has been recently refreshed, right?
Maryland has been refreshed, but again, it's the same argument of does a little refreshment and some renovation really drastically change the economic life of the property? But yeah, I mean, Maryland has also transacted several times, so we know there's issues there.
Okay, as has this one. When you do look at the sales history, this property has transacted multiple times. But I will just point out too that we are coming in here on this property at 64,000 per unit, and you're requesting 57,500 per suite. Now, when I go look at the sales data, 512 Balmoral, if you want to break it down per suite, is 62,500. So right in line with our original assessment. And when you want to look at 277 Langside, was 63,000 per suite, right in line with our assessment. So I guess my question is this property really worthy of a further adjustment below what these sales are?
So in terms of the sale price per suite, we'll always see a range. I mean, in terms of what you're saying at 63,000 versus what I'm suggesting for this property at 58,000, I don't see that as being a drastic difference. We look at this property on a site-specific basis, and we use the cap rate sales as further support. But I'm not doing a per suite analysis on all comparable properties with this one to compare, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess because we're always talking about cap rate, and so I'm trying to find here, like, do other valuation methodologies match up? Like the median sale price per suite you have in your cap rate study for pre-1946 is 62,500. And I mean, we're already below that median, and I guess based on the sales that are supported, I just want to confirm that you really feel like this is significantly, it should be below the median, even though the sales support that it shouldn't.
Well, as we know, averages and medians are made up of several sales, and there's going to be some that are lower, some that are higher, some that are right in the middle. But yes, I'm confident in my valuation that I presented today.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Knight, questions of the applicant?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Colatriglio.
I just want to just reconfirm, as far as the cap rates that you have shown here. They're all with exception of Maryland. Buildings that are built in the, I think, 52 and up range, 1952 and up. The only one in Maryland was built in 1913, similar to the subject, but it has an effective age of 1972 based on fully renovated suites. Suites in the subject have been renovated from your pictures, it seems, and from your oral that you've seen the units and they are renovated, correct?
Yes, the suites are renovated.
So would you not think that that would be most in line with Maryland in terms of suite or, per door cost and or the cap rate that was applied to that?
Yeah, I guess Maryland can be considered as comparable. For me, I was looking more at specific proximity with location. But yeah, Maryland can be considered comparable, though it is quite a bit it is larger with more suites.
Yes, it is. There's no question about that. I'm just saying, obviously the marketplace isn't perfect and giving you a comp in the near vicinity, is it? Never is. Just a moment. Yeah, I think I've made my point. Thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Mikulik, which summation?
No, I'm good.
All right. Ms. Gates, summation?
I'm good as
If
well,
you want.
thank you.
All right. Okay, we'll go to the next property, which is 722 Furby Street. There is a non-compliance issue, Mr. Mikulik. So I think if you temporarily want to briefly describe this, and then we'll deal with the non-compliance issue, which we have done before. So I think we will probably just, Mr. Mikulik, read it into the roll, read it into the record, and then we'll deal with the non-compliance issue.
Okay. File number 23393, roll number 130-504-04000. And the assessed value 1.031 million.
Okay, Mr. Mikulik, that's fine. The non-compliance issue we're going to deal with. So you are still seeking the non-compliance, correct?
Well, I thought we had cleared this up where you guys had denied it already.
Yes, but I just want to go from the record. Okay, so you are still, the non-compliance issue, correct?
Yeah.
For this
All right.
property.
Yes. Ms. Cates, I think Mr. Reimer explained this, so I think we're just going to take a little recess and deal with this, and then we'll come back. So, Ms. Caulfield, you can shut us down.
All right, give me a moment, Mr. Assessor, I'm gonna put you in the waiting room.
5 minutes.
Yeah, let's take 5. Let's take 5.
Okay.
We'll call the hearing back to order, and we're dealing with 722 Furby Street. So we have a non-compliance issue, and the panel has met and decided that we're going to deny the non-compliance request. So therefore, Mr. Michalak, you're going to be presenting the evaluation for this property. So
Okay.
Continue.
Okay, so I had read in the roll number 1305040404000, assessed value 1.031 million. We have a one building, 2-story, built in 1959, 16 suites. You could see the request on page 2, the request for income information. We didn't get any in 2020. Sales 2014 was the only sale, 470,000, the most recent. And you could see a photo of the subject property, where it's located, on Furby, similar area, doesn't deviate too far from McGee. Page 4, the income breakdown. You could see 15 bachelor and there's 1 2-bedroom. The rents, we could see effective gross income 126,832, expense rate 55.27%, for a net operating income of 56,732, cap rate 5.5%. And a value per suite of 64,437. Rent comps, so you could see here where it falls in line now. 698 Furby is a very similar property, rent comp number 2. So again, if you're in color, if you have color, 722 Furby is the blue, the subject. 698 Furby is the green, so they're pretty close to each other. You could see they're similar size. The rent per unit we have at 682, 698 Furby's at 739. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're the same owner. I'm not sure. 247 Balmoral, 819 per month. 409 Maryland, 800 a month rent. So we're definitely in line, or below what the other properties indicate on an income basis. And cap rate stuff we had touched on already. The cap rate evidence, don't need to go through that. And then our mailer send outs for the non-co-op documents, but was denied, and that's everything I have.
Thank you, Mr. Michalak. Ms. Katz, questions of the assessor?
I would just ask that my questions from Mickey just be carried forward, and I don't have any new questions to ask. Thank you.
All right, I thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
No, sir.
Okay, I thank you. Mr. Colatrillo?
Just to clarify, Mr. Michalak, the subject and sale number or rent comparable number 2 seem to be identical buildings. It appears.
Yes.
Is that what you would think at this point?
Yeah, aside from the 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom kind of differing on here.
Right.
That's same number of bachelor units, same year built, effective year built, stories, same gross floor area.
And yet that particular comparable average monthly rental applied there was $739 per suite average
That's correct.
versus the $682.42 on the subject, correct?
Correct. So from a overall income valuation, I mean, I would say we're slightly low. If you want to look at that.
Okay. And just give me a moment. We're at 5.5% cap rate on this one.
That's correct.
Sorry, just. It doesn't seem that there's been a lot of renovation done to this building over the course of its economic life.
Yeah, I haven't been able to take a look at it, so again, I wouldn't be able to comment on it, so I'm basically basing it on the buildings just kind of been average, or at least maintained, and then but nothing significant.
Did you check for any permits on this property, Mr. McCullough?
I did not find anything, no, when I looked.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
I thank you. I have no questions. Ms. Katz, your presentation.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, I have an exterior photo of the subject property as well as my requested assessment of $908,000. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Furby Street between its intersections with Cumberland Avenue and Notre Dame Avenue in the Spence area of Winnipeg. I believe the assessors already touched on the property details, and you'll also see the aerial photograph of the subject's location below. And on page 5, again, I have a Google map view of the subject neighborhood. On page 8, I have an overview of our income approach. So we are not disputing the assessor's NOI. We are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.5%, and we're using a cap rate of 6.25% based on our cap rate study, which I've gone through previously. So in terms of this property with its age, we would have a base cap rate of 5.5, but in the case of this property, the condition is inferior. It has an inferior suite mix, mostly all bachelor suites, and again, the location. So if you turn to page 9, you'll see our valuation workup for the property. So with the NOI of $56,732 and a 6.25% cap rate, we have a rounded value of $908,000. I would just ask that the cap rate presentation that I did previously just carry through to this property as well. My appendix starts on page 11. And I have some photos from a site visit that I did. So you'll see a lot of the common elements are quite worn. The units, one of the units in decent condition. This is the caretaker suite that you're seeing. And then there's just, more photos as you go through. You'll see on page 30, this unit was just recently vacated and it is damaged and there is work that needs to be done to it. And you see like the progression of the work that they're doing to it, but also some of the issues that are currently present with the unit. So that one's kind of in progress. And then on the final page, I have just the valuation workout. So that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cates. Mr. McCullough, questions of Ms. Cates?
Yeah, over on page 9 on your workup, just a question. It says current owner was not provided with financials from prior owner, but I don't see a sale. So was there a transaction of this property like that maybe didn't go through land titles, but through shares?
That note was included in error. It shouldn't have been there.
Okay, so if that note was included in error, how is there no financials of income and expenses that you're able to produce from this owner?
Not
Like,
something,
wouldn't they have given you the income and expense information then?
it's not something I was provided.
Okay, so you're saying the property never sold, but yet this person never provided you or the city then with any income and expense information, and you're the agent.
I'm not saying that property never sold. It's just not something I could speak to. And so the note shouldn't have been included.
Sorry, say that again.
Repeat the whole thing.
No, you had just said at the end, what about the note?
The note shouldn't have been included.
Okay, I find it odd then that you would have no expense information either. If they had run the property this whole time. Those are, and then my questions regarding the prior property and cap rate would also apply here, so we don't have to go through those again.
I thank you, sir. Ms. Knight?
No questions, thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Colatrello?
You're always gonna have that problem, aren't you? I have a question in respect to, just to understand better. Did you try and get income and expense information from the owners of this property?
Yes, I did try. He doesn't have.
He doesn't have. And he's a longtime owner of this property?
No.
According to the sales information from the city, last registered change was 2014. Is he new since 2014?
Yes.
And then I'm going back to the question of the great assessor. When was that transaction taking place?
I can't really speak to details, unfortunately.
Are you aware of that there was a share transfer or a sale of the business? Is that what happened? Probably. Yes?
No comment.
All right. Those are my questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Mikulik, summation if you so desire.
Nope, I have no summation.
All right, I thank you. Ms. Cates, any summation on this property?
No, thank you.
All right, let's go on to the next property, which is 889 Grosvenor Avenue. And I think the city has withdrawn the non-co-op issue.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, for this one, let's not worry about it.
okay. So, the floor is yours, Mr. Mikulik.
Okay. Okay, we have file number 23-286, roll number 120-229-93000. Assessed value, 1,540,000 for roll year 2024. Subject property, we have one building, 3-story, new build, built in 2019 on Grosvenor, 6 suites. And you could see here just it's a new property, so there's no real income and expense history. They did actually submit something, which is again why I pulled the non-compliance. And then the sales history, which is irrelevant because that was before the new build had taken place. So you could see here's a picture aerial shot of it on Grosvenor Avenue. For neighborhood wise, this is definitely superior. Great area for rentals, close to a lot of amenities. So number of units, it's got 6 2-bedrooms. The average monthly rent we have at $1,551 per unit. Where you could see the income workups, which gives us the effective gross income of 108,134. Expense ratio 35.92% with a net operating income of 69,292. Cap rate here at 4.5% and market value per suite of 256,666. Rent comparables, we see here 3 different rents. We have the one on, I would say, rent comparable number 1 would be most similar in size on Cochon, which is in Osborne Village. So again, if you have color, blue is the subject. Purple would be Cochon in terms of the similar type of suite mix, and it's a smaller building, built in 2015. They're 1707, 180 Roslyn Road, which was built in 2019, but has significantly more units. They're at 1547, which is still in line with the subject. The suites look like they could be a bit smaller, but again, that's hard to say just from the extent that the gross floor area also encompasses like common areas in that might get distributed to these, and that's a fairly large building. So we would probably just disregard comps 2 and 3 for the time being is not great, but comp 1 similar style. Outside of that, cap rates we had touched on. This one's a bit lower at 4.5, and I know we'll probably get asked the question that, well, 4.5 is below the 20th percentile of 4.8. And again, I'd like to point out that this is a new build in a very highly desirable neighborhood. These smaller properties like this can attract more demand because more people can buy them, just based on the fact that if they want to add to a portfolio, it's not like a $20 million complex they're buying, right? So it can attract a larger pool of investors, which increases demand. So the 4.5 cap rate I see as perfectly fine. And again, cap rate sales as well, we had touched on those previously, but if we want to go to page 12, so we did get a submission from the owner for the 2020 mailer. You could see they do have some line item. Now it says 17% vacant, but I'm just not sure if that's the case. I don't have a rent roll, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that when the place started leasing yet. But yeah, this is from an income perspective, I would say that we're probably okay when you factor in the annual income's 142,800, and the average monthly rent being 11,900 divided by 6. I think the rents work out more to closer to the 1,800 a month range, and we're at 1,551. So just based on that information, I would think that we're still okay on this property, just being that we're probably low on the income. So I think I'm fairly confident in the value from that regard. And that will conclude my presentation.
I thank you, sir. Ms. Cates, questions of the assessor?
Table on page 6, the broker cap rates are used as further support for the assessment department cap rates. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And would you agree that they suggest nothing lower than 5 for a low rise, with CBRE suggesting even a higher baseline level?
That's what they suggest, but they don't get all the information that we do.
But they would predominantly deal with more investment grade properties. Is that correct?
They can, yeah.
Okay. And then in terms of your comments on smaller properties having lower cap rates due to less competition, do you have anything in your evidence to support that, or is that more so just the assessment department opinion?
Oh, it's the from speaking to professionals in the industry.
Okay. And then regarding the 17% vacancy that you mentioned, would you agree that if a property has only 6 units, that 17% vacancy isn't actually unreasonable? That it would be hard to maintain a market vacancy?
Well, again, I would have to see a rent roll, so it'd be hard to comment on that. I mean, I don't have that. That wasn't produced in this brief for me, so.
Okay, that would conclude my questions. Thank you.
I thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
No, sir.
I thank you. Mr. Colatriglio?
Just, I guess what I'm looking at it,
Who?
9,597 is what they're suggesting their income was for the property.
That's correct. Yeah, that's what it shows on their mailer that they had submitted for.
And obviously they had some sort of,
You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Yeah, yeah.
they had some sort of vacancy at this point, so the potential market could have been.
Still don't hear you.
Yeah, we're breaking up here.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can't hear anything in the boardroom.
Yeah,
Okay.
One moment.
yeah. Yeah, Mike, you were breaking up. I couldn't hear you.
Okay,
Yeah. So Sally just went down the way to,
Okay,
just resetting, I think.
yeah.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just wait for Sally to come back.
We okay now?
I think so. Yes.
Like our
I can hear all the Zoom people. Do you want to try talking in the boardroom?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Excellent. So I guess that the question that I'd asked was, from the mailer of the assessor, I asked in respect to the 109,597 that was shown,
Right.
potentially there would be a greater sum collected if it had been 100% occupied, correct?
Yes.
And unfortunately, they did not produce a rent roll for you to verify any of this, correct?
I don't have one.
I don't see anything that's attached. That's why I'm asking.
No.
And I think you had said your best comparable was number 1, was it?
For rent comps.
Yes.
Yeah, just from a similar style building.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
I thank you. Just I made a little notation here, and the questionnaire for I have June 25th, 2021.
Right.
They said the gross rent is 142,800.
Right.
Okay, so in just doing the math, roughly figuring, I think you had said that the average is like 1556 would give you your gross of 111,709. But if you use, I'm thinking like River Heights, 1,800 for a 2-bedroom seemed to be like reasonable. So that would give you at 129,600 or 129,600. But Where did they get the 142,800?
Okay, so just try to let me clarify. When I look like that sheet on page 14, if you take what they say and take the average monthly rent 11,900 that it says in the middle column, divide it by 6, which is the number of suites, that would be 1983 per suite. We're coming in at 15
Yeah. Okay.
15. So like I feel like we're obviously low on the income, which I mean, when you circle back to the overall value, I mean, I would think even if we had real income data and we went with a higher cap rate, the value would probably still go higher because the income's going to be higher, right? So when I look at the property from a total estimated market value of 1.1540, I mean, I think we're already low.
So everything that you've presented here is basically model driven.
Correct.
Okay. So that includes the vacancy of 3.2 and expenses being close to 36%. Does that seem realistic?
Yeah, it does for a new property that's only 6 units.
Okay. And the cap rate that you're using is 4.5. Seems to be a little low even for like a brand new building. So was there an override or anything, or just strictly model?
That's a model driven number.
All right. All right. Ms. Cates, your presentation, and I have a little note here that they were going to request a 53, like a confirmation. Is that what's going on here, or do you have a presentation?
Oh, I have a presentation. I submitted a brief. Do you guys
Okay,
have
that's
it?
fine. That's fine. I try to get as much stuff, but no. We're ready for your presentation.
Okay, sounds good. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of 1,253,000, as well as an exterior photograph. On page 4, we have the property description. So the subject property is in a good location. It's on Grosvenor Avenue between its intersections with Stafford and Wentworth in the Crescentwood area. It is a 3-story wood frame structure, recently.
Can't hear you.
Oh,
Yeah. We just lost it.
What about now?
You're
Now I
okay
can
now,
hear
I
you.
think.
Okay.
Keep talking.
Okay, so the site size is approximately 6,000 square feet. There are 6 units, which are all 2 bedrooms, and there are 6 outdoor parking stalls noted. So you'll see the aerial photograph below and the Google Map view on page 5. So if you turn to page 8, we have the overview of our income approach. So the main contention would be the cap rate. We are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 4.5%. And we're using our baseline cap rate for new properties of 5.25%. And there's no adjustments included in that. That is just the 1999 plus cap rate that we've used. So if you turn to page 9, I have the spreadsheet of our income approach. So we only have 1 year of data, which so we can't really do a full stabilization. But what we've done is I've just included the EGI as what they're reporting, 109,597. There's no additional vacancies taken out of that. That's just from their statements. In terms of the expenses, I've categorized the expenses.
You're gone again.
Yeah.
Can't hear you.
Okay.
How about now?
Okay. We're getting interruptions, so just continue.
did they pay the internet bill?
On a moment.
Okay. Oh dear.
Actually, must be something. That's weird.
Yeah. It's the feed, I guess, that's going on here.
I
So,
suppose.
yeah. So Sally's gone down the way to check it?
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
And now as soon as she leaves, it works fine.
yeah.
Of
of
course.
course. Isn't that how it always is?
Maybe it's her. Maybe nobody likes the machine doesn't like her body. There we go.
All right, good job, Sally.
Honestly, Mr. Chair, it wasn't me. I have no idea why it's doing this. I'm going to consult with our AV people.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so
Whenever you're ready, yeah.
Okay, so I've categorized the expenses as they've listed them, but I haven't included any type of interest expenses or anything of that sort that they've put in their mailer. So you'll see that their actual expenses are on the higher end. So what I've done is I've just capped them at 40%, keeping in mind that this is a new apartment, but we see ranges for new apartments from the mid-30s to the low 40s. So at 40%, it would be on the higher end, but completely in line with what they're reporting. So that gives us an NOI of $65,758, and with a 5.25% cap rate, gives us a value of $1,253,000 rounded. So if you go to page 11, that's the start of my appendix. So I've included some photos from the property that's from their website. I did not go to visit this property since it is new. I assumed that the photos that they're showing are fairly accurate to the condition that it is. And then on page 16, I've also included a photo which shows the property next to it, which is much bigger, grander, and it overall looks a bit more impressive. So that could explain why some of the vacancy happens in this property, that even though it's in a great location and is a new build, you have a lot of these types of new builds in the surrounding area. And on page 17, we have the city valuation, building details, and then I've included, starting on page 19, the mailer as submitted. So just to clarify a point that came up in the assessor's presentation, the owner did submit a full mailer with a rent roll. I believe the assessor was just alluding to that the rent roll just wasn't included as part of the submission that he received to present today. So that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Mikulik, questions of the applicant?
Yeah, like just like I did prior to this, I did look through your evidence and I did see the rent roll. So I just I'm kind of confused because they list the 17% vacancy, but when you look at the leasing, like the dates that the leases started, so leases started April 1st, 2019, and it became fully leased April 1st, 2021. So my assumption is there isn't this, it's fully leased.
At the current time, it's fully leased. They did have an issue fully leasing it up. They had one unit that was vacant for quite some time. So if you see that they just leased this up April 1, 21, and our reference date is April 1, 21,
Okay.
then, at the point of valuation,
Okay.
that vacancy was still an issue. And one of the things that they do to manage kind of vacancy and bad debts at this property is they give a discount for rents being paid on time. So that's kind of an interesting feature I hadn't seen before.
Okay. So that's a condition though that the owner kind of makes that up, right? And applies that.
Yeah, for sure. He's made a decision, I guess, on managing those elements that were previously an issue.
Okay. So just regarding the cap rate, how and it kind of goes back to referencing Altus's cap rate study. So you're saying the base cap rate for a new build, hold on one second. For a new build is 5.25. So you guys start at 1999 and go up at 5.25%. So there's no, like, don't you think that that's a pretty large age gap of, say, we're in 2023 and that's 24 years that you're just blanketing 5.25%? Like, wouldn't you agree that these newer properties probably shouldn't be included with like one that's built in 2000 with the same kind of cap rate?
It's possible that perhaps starting at 1999 might be a bit early, but when you look at CMHC data, when they're talking about new properties, they go 2005 plus. So maybe that's the cutoff, 2005 plus. Yeah, but it is a large category. Just if you're doing stratification of cap rates, there just has to be cut off somewhere.
Like we do know, like the properties built now aren't even close to compare, like shouldn't even be lumped into a category of, say, 1999. Like I have a hard time thinking that 5.25 should just be applicable wide cap rate, and I just don't see how even Altus and other valuation areas would apply it that way. But okay, no, that was my only question, I guess, regarding the base cap. So that's when you say base cap at 5.25, no property in 2023 for tax will have a cap rate lower than 5.25% through Altus. Is that correct?
I didn't say that. No, that's not correct.
Okay,
5.25 is our starting point, but we've definitely gone to the board before at 5%. We look at it on a site-specific basis. Keep in mind that the brokers are saying 5 to 6 for investment grade, CBRE's at 5.25, and the highest quality stock is going to be high-rise, concrete construction, underground parking, lots of amenities. So 5.25 is well within reason when we're looking at a smaller property like this. Nice units, but not full of amenities, no underground parking, etc.
okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Miss Knight, questions of
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Colatrillio?
And just, I'm a little bit confused by the fact that it appears that a rent roll was in fact sent along, but the assessor didn't seem to have it. What's the disjoint here? Am I missing something?
My understanding is that, so I pulled this based on what was submitted. So this is what was submitted, but my understanding is that a different assessor prepared the brief and perhaps didn't include it for Mr. Mikulik today.
Interesting. Mr. Mikulik, any comment to that, sir?
I'm fairly new to the whole Board of Revision. I don't know if I could have submitted more evidence like yesterday if I'm allowed to do those things, but I would have probably taken that on myself to do that once I seen the information, but I guess chose not to because I wasn't sure. Like the evidence had already been submitted, so I don't know. I got asked to handle this kind of 11th hour, so
Thrown to the lions, were you?
yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Mikulik, do you wish summation?
No, I'm okay, thank you.
All right. Ms. Kates, sorry.
I'll just do a brief
Summation.
summation for all the properties. Essentially all the properties we've heard today, there is a cap rate issue at play. We believe that the city's cap rates are too low across the board. And in our submissions with our cap rate study as support, I just hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, I thank you for your presentations and results very soon. And you have a pleasant day. Mr. Michaluk, thank you very kindly for your presentation. And have a good day. We have heard all the scheduled items and this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you.
All right,
Thank
take care.
you.